Crossdown Live. We've got a lot of people who love this segment. It's about the history, local history. This is live and local. And it's Howard, the H, I call him, Howard H. Peacock. And he's got his own sound effect. Harold, come on in.
Yeah, Danny, excited to be here, especially with that introduction.
Oh, mate, and you have a wonderful website. What is it?
Yeah, historyoutThere.com.
Mate, now you're going to tell us about the hero of the 1918 Ipswich election.
Yeah, that's right. Well, in fact, it's the 1918 Queensland election, but this guy was in Ipswich. His name was Edward Morris Little. Now, as a 24-year-old, he contested the 1918 state election in the Ipswich seat of Bremer.
Right.
Now, the seat was held by Frank Cooper, who years later became the 25th Premier of Queensland. And you might remember, Cooper was the Premier who visited the Boobau outhouse that I told you about a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
In any case, young Morris had spent the 2 years leading up to the election touring the district, giving lectures in support of the war effort.
Right.
He'd previously been a school teacher and was an excellent cricketer and was actually on the verge of representing Queensland until the First World War broke out.
Wow.
But come the 1918 election, Morris gave a good account of himself, winning 34% of the vote in the electorate. That was never going to change hands.
No.
But why was young Morris a hero? That's a question.
Why was Morris a hero?
That's a great question, Danny. You see, 3 years earlier, he was a lieutenant at Gallipoli with Queensland's fighting 15th Battalion.
Wow.
Now, Morris was throwing bombs, trying to repel a Turkish attack, when he held on to one a bit too long and it blew up in his hand. Now, while he was being... Well, nothing to laugh about, Danny, but...
You think you'd get rid of the bloody thing, wouldn't you? Fair dinkum, come on.
Yeah, well, we only had 6 seconds, but, and you didn't want to throw it too soon, otherwise they'd throw it back. but the thing is, Morris kept composure because as he was being stretched away, he still took time to recommend a man who was fighting with him for a decoration.
Yeah.
Now, his father, who was the Methodist minister, the Reverend William Little in North Ipswich, was told first that Morris had been killed in action. Then he was told that he'd been wounded but not seriously. But in reality, neither report were true. You see, the injuries that Morris received resulted in his forearm being amputated, both eyes being removed, and his legs stiffened.
Wow.
Now, what?
Back in those days, mate, that would have been, to survive that, that'd be like first aiders those days, not doctors.
Oh, well, like, to survive those injuries, it was just really rare. It was like probably unheard of. However, while he was recovering in hospital in Alexandria in Egypt, and this is probably part of a miracle of recovering, an English nurse called Bessie was caring for him.
Right.
Now, they fell in love.
Oh.
Now, and Bessie was 22 years older than him, but they got married at Alexandria just a few months later, with Morris being carried in a chair to the altar. His love story attracted worldwide attention.
Wow.
A personal letter from Lady Maxwell, the wife of the British commander, and prompted by Queen Victoria's daughter, was hand-delivered by Prince Henry of Battenberg, and in it, Lady Maxwell apologised that she couldn't get to his wedding. Anyway, Morris was repatriated home in 1915, and he went straight to his parents' house in North Ipswich. And straight away, he started receiving a regular flow of visitors, including the usual politicians and you guys, the media. Now, Danny, his story had simply captured the hearts of Australia. And Morris never lost touch of where he was from, because he talked about reading about the Ipswich Stedford in the Queensland Times while he was sheltering in a trench at Quince Post at Gallipoli.
Mate,
so it's just such a local story, and he was a hero.
He lost 2 eyes, a forearm and a leg, didn't he?
Yeah, that's right. And he actually went on to become an active writer and published a book of poems. And that, despite obviously only having one hand, it's pretty hard to use a typewriter with one hand.
It is. And tell me this, what was his name?
Morris Little.
That is just such a great story. And you're getting a good reaction, aren't you, from these stories you tell on the radio?
Yeah, that's right. Being Ipswich, but also just being unusual. Like last week, it was the story about the grand finals, because it was a grand final week. So you talk about rugby league in Ipswich, but also Stedford's in Ipswich. And you wouldn't believe the number of classically trained rugby league supporters there are that contacted me, Danny.
That is fantastic.
Classical music,
mate. You are honestly really great storytelling. You're a very good storyteller, particularly for radio, and we love having you on the program. You'll hear Harold H. Peacock, next week telling us more history about Ipswich. Don't forget to go to his website. What is it, Harold?
HistoryOutThere.com.
Vote 1. Vote Harold. Ha ha! Peacock on West Bremer Radio.